Welcome back to Disney Fighting Evolution, the storyline that portrays the state of Disney throughout the 2010s. I'm AJ, and this video will be discussing the confession arc that occurs on one fateful day in early 2015. But as always, I'll give you a recap of what happened last time. New Disney was publicly revealed to the world in late 2014 and declared a war between the original Disney division. By this point, employees of Disney, as well as outsiders, had to support one of two groups. And this is a great opportunity for me to state that there is no morally right answer. While we like to believe that original Disney is defending their ground from the Neo-Disney invaders, these are the same people that got us to this point in the first place. Mickey is a corporate piece of shit that sees his employees as dollar signs. And while Leilamon is a lot more friendly to employees, she's no saint either. She selfishly became the astral co-owner of the company just because she could. And for Neo-Disney, well, let's check back in on them. By the start of the new year, the group was going full speed with overthrowing and overriding past Disney mistakes, with their first order of business fully committing to making live-action remakes to the Disney Princess lineup. These movies are what made original Disney, so it was natural to update them for Neo-Disney by making dark, unpleasant, and miserable remakes. Even though their underground warehouse was destroyed, Neo-Disney did have a backup building to store all their files and cloning chambers at Disney Springs, which used to be called Downtown Disney. I know some people might think I'm a hardcore Disney defender because I enjoy a lot of their Star Wars content, but I have made it explicitly clear in the past, I hate most newer Disney films. I made a whole rant on Elsa for Christ's sake. All I'm saying is, the live-action remakes are terrible, so why do we keep giving them money? But it was Neo-Disney's genius idea to make people forget about original Disney and embrace their side of the war, and it somehow worked. While Alice in Underland, yes Underland, and Maleficent weren't full-on remakes, the group's first proper take on it would be Cinderella. After all, Disney Astral employees worked at Magic Kingdom, where the castle is based off of Cinderella's. But since they were focusing on the remakes more often, the original properties, including the cash cow Frozen, were pushed to side projects. And then they came across a peculiar security camera with interesting footage. In order to avoid spoiling the big reveal in the end, I will say the arc takes place the same day as the Cinderella remake was released, as well as the release of the Frozen short to coincide with the film. I would like to believe that most people who saw the remake exclusively watched Frozen Fever and left the theater shortly after. Now for Elsa and the others, they were planning on spending the day at Magic Kingdom to celebrate the release. However, she got a call from Neo-Disney to do a couple of last-minute reshoots by herself. She told Anna she would be right back and headed to Springs. And so, a couple of hours went by, and the group was planning on getting something to eat for lunch. And then without warning, Olaf's perma-freeze spell went off and he instantly melted. This came as a shock since there's only two ways Olaf can melt. One being Elsa herself disabling the perma-freeze spell, which is out of character, and the other being the fact that Olaf lives because of Elsa's magic. So without him, that would mean... oh, hell no! Anna sprinted out of Magic Kingdom and ran to Disney Springs on foot. Ever since the mystery at Hell's Prison in 2014, Shoutmon spent most of his nights contemplating on who Grimhilda really is and why was she so fixated on him for the past year and a half. Even to the point where he had weekly meetings with Miss Lilith talking about his feelings and some theories they had. But on the day Cinderella released, she told him today was going to be the day they were going to uncover the truth and she would not leave his side until then. To make sure nothing bad would happen, she also brought along Nerissa and Ursula for extra support. Shoutmon was weirded out working alongside a Lilithmon since the last one he met tried to kill him, but Garamon was such a nice person that she promised he shouldn't worry. She honestly thought it would be a quick and casual meeting with the owners and get right back to work, since there was also a conflict brewing up with the Viacom alignment. While running towards Disney Springs, Anna tried to come up with excuses as to why Elsa was unconscious. Maybe it was a freak accident. Maybe she got a concussion from something. What if Rosalina came back to finish the job and Anna wasn't there to save her sister? When she got to the Neo-Disney building, she frantically pounded on the door. And then she smelled something extremely foul coming from the side of the building. I understand my opinion on Elsa is in the minority, but I honestly do feel bad for Anna that day when she found her sister's corpse hastily thrown in a dumpster. Yep, Neo-Disney privately executed Elsa once she got to the building. Once seeing the security footage, they saw Elsa as an embarrassment to Neo Disney, easily getting her ass beat by some random intruder. And with their new lineup of clones, they saw her as an inferior employee, regardless of how much money she made for them. In order to prevent showing weakness, they gave Elsa the offer: either she dies or her sister. And well, I guess you know what outcome she picked. Now I know what you're probably thinking, AJ, Elsa is an astral soul. She can be revived after spending some time in heaven. Here's the thing, Disney clones do not have souls. Mickey did not want to spend an extra grand just to incorporate that feature when building the chambers. So when these clones die, they permanently stay dead until they are recreated. And the only people that have Elsa's data, memories included, are Neo Disney. So the chances of her coming back are not likely. Regardless, Anna was emotionally shut down, and inside the building, Neo Disney relished in her misery. Only a couple minutes later, the co-owner and her posse arrived at Springs, and Anna ran up to them in hopes of seeking comfort. Understanding the situation, Laylamon ordered the others working at Magic Kingdom to take Anna in and prepare some arrangements for a funeral for her sister. Her husband, Seraphimon, would be in charge of the situation since he was already the main general for Astro Souls of the company. Honestly, nice to see Patamon actually being in charge for once, unlike in Zero 2, wink wink. But around this time at 12 PM, the park would see a threat. The phone call Laylamon missed out on that day was with people from D. More notably, Sabrina and Sharon, two former Disney employees. Even though, again, Raceface was a novella show, so why would she be hanging out with a person like Sabrina? I don't know. Anyway, they scheduled a meeting in order for Disney to remove their contract since 2009. In the past, some DiC shows did air onto Disney, and they wanted to cut off all ties in order for the Viacom alignment to fully take all of DiC in order to deal with who owns what again. But since she flunked out on the call, both blondes decided to take the meeting physically, invading Disney with their skills. Following the Girl Wars, these two had to experience a lot after witnessing the depressing ends of it all, and they were not the same cheery upbeat girls from the mid-2000s. Sabrina was going around using spells to screw people over, and Shannon used her magnetism skills to cause annoyances in the park. So Seraphimon had a lot in his hands on that day, while making sure Anna was also safe. Flipping back to Disney Springs, the four encountered almost a repeat of last year. They faced Alice, who this time wasn't hiding the fact that she was loyal to Neo Disney till the end, but again, her life was spared. The recreated Maleficent clone casually revealed that she too was a clone, but again, also survived her fight. The original Grimhilda and Maleficent saw what was going on outside, and they agreed it was time to send in the Renaissance. These were the reformed, revised, and improved clones of the ones we saw back in Night of Neo Disney. The Ariel clone ditched her sea witch tentacles to having human legs and was more in tune with sorcery and spells. The Jasmine clone, once being a genie, is now a swashbuckling commoner skilled in acrobatics and sword fighting. And the Belle clone, who was once both Beauty and Beast, was now a goddamn ninja. You see, Emma Watson, a British actress, was playing a French character in the remake. So Neo Disney decided to take it a step further and make this clone a trained assassin whose origins trace from Japan. They messed with the three girls, Ursula confirming her suspicion that the Ariel standing in front of her was not the one she once knew. This time they actually killed the clones, since their tactics were far deadlier than the other fights. And lastly, they faced the newly constructed Cinderella clone, who was a cyborg. At this point, Neo Disney was clearly out of ideas. Once trashing the robot, they eventually got to Neo Disney's main building. All that was left was to uncover the truth. Conveniently, Maleficent and Grimhilda were out in the open in the main office. Grimhilda saw Shoutmon and lifted herself up from the chair. As she undone her headpiece, she began to say, "If you remember from my Digimon Fusion review, I would reveal whose Shoutmon's human mother was in DFE. You want to know? Even though it's pretty obvious." In 1970, within her 20 years staying in Japan, Grimhilda had to wait 13 years for the opening of Tokyo Disneyland, the sole reason why she was there in the first place. In order to kill some time, she used her magic to disguise herself to create a new identity, this being Roya Tachibana, a quiet young woman who traveled to the city from the royal farmlands to pursue a career. She decided to choose police and authorities as that job. Through there, she came across another Astral Soul officer named Bargra, which was the name officers gave him, nicknamed Demon. Supposedly, he was born from the nuclear fallout of World War II. He had no family and was brought in by the police due to his immense radioactive power and strength. However, other officers saw him as a weapon first and human second. Roya, seeing some connections of being labeled as a monster, grew an attachment to him. Within a couple of years, they became partners in cases and engaged in a relationship outside of it. Before getting married, Grimhilda revealed her true self to him and asked him if he was okay with the repercussions of marrying a Disney employee, which back then was forbidden for Disney employees to be in a relationship with others. But Barbara said to hell with Disney, he loved her in any way imaginable. In 1976, the two got married, with Barbara taking his spouse's last name because he didn't have one. 2 years later, they had a son named Seto, which kids growing up called him the Shouting Kid because of how loud and disruptive he was, but he always had a heart of gold at the end of the day. Even when Tokyo Disneyland opened in 1983, Grimhilda couldn't leave the family she formed behind, but in the back of her mind, one day she would have to leave this life forever. She needed to find a perfect place where her husband and child would be safe from Mickey. And in 1989, that answer came to her from a report at work. A company named Nerve was planning on a ritual through digital technology. While government soldiers and officers raided the building, giant creatures randomly appeared and were attacking the city, though only for a brief moment before disappearing. Roya and Barbara investigated the building, searching for any survivors, and what they found was a teenage kid strangling a comatose girl. He was sustained, and both he and the girl would make a full recovery at the hospital. They found out that the owner, Gento Akari, was using the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Spear of Longitis to resurrect his dead wife by using his son Shinji and a German girl to do his dirty work through virtual reality. Both children were the only survivors. After losing several officers from the raid, the branch had to be shut down. Now with no job, the only option was for Grim to return to America and leave her family behind. But just 1 week later, Shinji visited their house with a blue-haired girl neither were familiar with. Turns out she knew who Grimhilda was underneath her disguise. Shortly after Shinji recreated Rei in the physical world, the two went to Disneyland to ease their minds off of everything that happened. When they got to the Snow White ride, the Evil Queen animatronic looked familiar to Rei, and that's because when she was still in the virtual machine self-destructing the servers, she'd noticed that the same woman also recovered Shinji, seeing right through her magic. They promised that they would keep it a secret if they were open to be a part of Nerve. Since the building now belonged to Shinji, he decided to use his father's computers for the greater good, creating a digital world that could be taught to and by humans. With literally nowhere to go, they took the job. Within months, the digital world servers were ready to be uploaded in early 1990, and with Grimhilda seeing how intelligent Shinji was with creating digital monsters, she asked him if he could take care of her boys. Shinji came up with the decision of converting both Seto and Barbara into Digimon, losing their memories of being human. This was a bittersweet decision. Both would forget their past, but gave Grimhilda the satisfaction that both would be fine as long as their data was in the digital world. On April 8, 1990, not only did the digital world servers first open, as well as the beginning of the events of Digimon Cross Wars/Fusion, but Grimhilda left Japan, leaving 20 years of her life behind. When returning to America, she told nobody that she had a family. The only person she told was Mickey in 2000, but by that point, Mickey was relieved that she left no ties to Japan. Of course, she didn't tell him that they were digital creatures, but nobody would believe her back then. But now, Shoutmon had a valley of emotions and memories flooding back to him. She explained that she used her clones to test him if he remembered who he was, and when that failed, the only option left was to deal with it personally. Maleficent saw this as a waste of time and wanted to get rid of the pests, dragon form and all. But with everything getting too intense, and the fact that Lilithmon got all the answers she needed, she ordered the others to fall back. She even had to pick Shoutmon up, who was still in shock. Meanwhile, at Magic Kingdom, roughly 3 p.m., Sabrina and Sharon heard that their target wasn't at the park, so they announced that they would return later that night. Later, Lilithmon told her employees, and more so her digital monster brethren, about what she heard. She also ordered Shoutmon to go home and rest on what happened today, with the two subordinates watching over him. She politely asked Mickey if he could arrange a meeting with both founders of Neo Disney in order to ask more questions about their motives. Mickey said, "I want to know more about this," and without warning, he left. In his human form. I think nobody in that room could have predicted he had a human form. By 6 p.m., Mickey had a dinner reservation with Maleficent and Grimhilda, and an hour later, the two blondes returned. However, she was a bit stressed that both girls were attacking from opposite sides of the park, and that one of them might get to Anna, who was still grieving. And if that wasn't bad enough, she gets a call from the group located at Frontierland, and they told her that She-Hulk was also in the vicinity. Now, I want to make a clear reminder. During the 80s and early 90s, Jennifer used the alias Carmen Sandiego to travel around the world, becoming the strongest astral soul possible. Deke liked the concept of a mysterious woman traveling the globe and created the entertainment rights of the character in order to entertain and educate children about geography and cultures. So the Carmen Sandiego and the red hat and dress was based off of Jennifer's training. Then when the show went to Fox Kids, it was a 2-in-1 deal, with She-Hulk representing the show as well as being a part of her cousin's animated series in the mid-90s. She saw Fox Kids' president, which at the time was Bobby, to be a wealthy and powerful competitor, as well as seeing the entire Sat AM business as a gold mine to achieve more power. After a failed assassination attempt, Bobby ran out of Fox Kids the day he left office in January of 1999, causing Jen to promise herself whoever will be the next president of the company, she will find a way to kill them in order to achieve her goal. And well, you know what happens next. What she was doing on Disney that day? She wanted to fight Lilithmon, as if she wasn't busy enough already. Lilithmon told everybody to leave Jen alone, she'll handle the fight herself. When she got to the rooftops, Jen teased her that her men were so weak that she barely put up a fight. Almost a disappointment compared to when Turkina was in charge. The two pulled a lot of punches and special moves with one another, but the fight really heated up when Jennifer used her fourth wall break abilities to grab her sword from her apartment from Manhattan. This was the Uniblade, a sword that could pierce through any material in the universe, including digital code. After getting a vital artery stabbed, she was able to defeat Jennifer, though she shortly retreated back to the ground. However, she was in no shape of fighting Sharon or Sabrina with the wound. Meanwhile, Anna was still being under protection as she was staring at the freshly made grave and tombstone for Elsa that original Disney supported. She made a promise to herself and her sister that she will avenge her death and find out which Neo-Disney member was responsible for the execution. However, Sharon got to where the Adventureland post was, which was led by Ty, and not only that, Jen was there too. Sharon told Jennifer she could kill him off as she would let Sabrina know. But as she was going for the kill, Jen silently assassinated Sharon instead. Jennifer knew Ty had a million questions, but she replied with, "I'm turning over a new leaf." In 2014, Jen had to spend some time in Hell's prison, and from there, she thought long and hard about her selfish goals of killing the competition of being the strongest astral soul. She was already strong to begin with, but she needed to find the right time to be on good terms with the folks back at Disney. So when she heard that the Viacom alignment wanted to absorb all of Deke, that was the moment Jen would strike. And it made sense, since all of the people Jennifer fought that night, she made sure there were 0 fatalities. Except for Sharon, of course. All that was left was Sabrina right in front of the castle. Turkina had to tell her that Lilithmon was currently in critical condition, so she wouldn't be able to fight her, which only made Sabrina even more pissed off. She came to the park twice that day, and her target wasn't there on both occasions. While the two fought, Sabrina showed off her immense power and magic, and after being a sore loser from the fight, she summoned a spell that would wipe the entire resort from the earth. That's where Jen comes in from behind and begins to sacrifice herself to the blast. She does get a few words to Turkina, saying that she was sorry that she prayed over her life, employees, and son since 1999, and that if this sacrifice is enough to forgive her. Right before the blast goes off, evaporating both her and Sabrina, Jennifer apologizes for what she did that day 6 years ago, before the flames consumed the both of them. All that was left standing was the Uniblade, with Turkina being confused on what Jen meant about that last part. Then Ty remembered that day's date, Friday, February 13th, 2015. 6 whole years since the day Jetix rebranded into Disney XD, leading all Saban employees to leave the company, and the main perpetrator of the separation was She-Hulk. And if you remember, the final show to air on Jetix was the She-Hulk debut episode from the 1996 Hulk series. When Mickey returned from dinner at 9 p.m., there were some damages to the park, but nothing that couldn't be repaired. However, he came back with a lot of information regarding Neo-Disney. Okay, editor's note here. It turns out I was wrong about the Cinderella remake. It came out on March 13th, not February. However, it did premiere at a film festival on February 13th. So in other words, it does work out with the story arc,
But anyway, back with the video.
And that was the Confessions arc. So many plot twists and revelations were stated in this arc. Next time, I will be discussing one more story arc in Disney Fighting Evolution before taking a break with the storyline. If you liked the video, consider liking the video and subscribing. Until then, I'm AJ, and I'll see you all in the next one.